Imagine that you sign a loan agreement for 7 long years, thinking that you will take a reliable car that will serve your family faithfully. Chevrolet. A name that has been associated for decades with the American dream, with reliability, with a symbol of the road and freedom. But today, this dream is increasingly turning into a financial nightmare. The stories of real people sound like a thriller scenario. An engine that stakes right on the highway, a gearbox that turns every trip into a lottery, and repair bills that easily exceed the cost of a used car. Do you think these are rare cases? No. According to surveys of owners, the level of complaints about Chevrolet's reliability has increased by almost half in recent years. And it's not just statistics. These are tens of thousands of families who were held hostage by machines that did not even live up to half the loan term. Equipment breaks down at 50,000–60,000 kilometers while payments continue until the 7th year. Imagine this. You owe the bank tens of thousands more dollars, but your car is no longer moving, and instead of being proud of the purchase, you will be humiliated at the service, where employees shrug their shoulders and say, "The warranty period has expired." In this video, we will tell you what lies behind the beautiful Chevrolet commercials. As the company's internal documents indicate, engineers warned of massive breakdowns even before the models went into production. How exactly a small component, smaller than a tennis ball, can turn your engine into a pile of scrap metal. Why 8th-generation transmissions fail massively, leaving owners on the sideline. And why the brand's electric pride, the Chevrolet Bolt, became famous not for its record mileage, but for a series of fires and a ban on parking in its own garage. We will raise an issue that the carmaker prefers to keep silent about. Are modern Chevrolet cars really designed just to live up to the end of the warranty? Is a long-standing reputation being sacrificed for the sake of saving several tens of dollars on every detail? And most importantly, why do buyers who have trusted the legendary name find themselves embroiled in debt, losing not only their cars but also their financial stability? There will be more to come. We'll show why competitors are already ripping the market away from Chevrolet, offering reliability where GM is defying expectations. We'll tell you how the drop in reliability ratings has affected the real value of cars, and why a 3-year-old Chevrolet is depreciating faster than you can pay off your loan. This is not just a story about cars. This is a story about trust that has been destroyed, about people who paid full price for the brand, but received only pain, debts, and hopelessness. Don't rush to sign a contract for a new Chevrolet until you've watched this video to the end, because what you hear can save you not only thousands of dollars, but also years of your life. Chevrolet has been marketed to Americans for decades as a symbol of success, stability, and trust. Millions of families chose these cars, considering them a reliable investment that will last for many years. However, in recent years, this image has been rapidly collapsing. More and more buyers are facing an unpleasant reality. Cars bought on credit for 7 or 8 years begin to fail after 3 or 4 years. Imagine the situation. A family takes a new Silverado in 2022, hoping to use it as a workhorse. It takes only 50,000 kilometers and the engine stops completely. The repair cost exceeds $18,000, 0 cents, and the loan on the car has not even exceeded half the deadline. Similar stories appear everywhere, from Texas to Michigan, from large cities to small towns. The real data confirms the alarming trends. According to J.D. Power reports, Chevrolet reliability complaints increased by more than 40% in 2024 compared to 2022. Consumer Reports ranked the brand 23rd out of 32 in overall reliability, while popular models like the Tahoe and Equinox scored below average in terms of projected service life. Previously, Chevrolet was associated with cars that can travel 200,000 kilometers without major repairs. Today, even a mileage of 100,000 is becoming a problem for many owners. Forums and communities are filled with stories of people who find themselves with a broken car and loan debts. But there are facts that remain in the shadows and only increase the scale of the crisis. According to independent analysts, GM created an internal compensation fund in 2023 to deal with particularly severe cases. The documents indicate that more than $300 million, 0 cents, is invested in this fund annually to cover the costs of major engine and transmission failures, but only owners who are willing to sign a non-disclosure agreement have access to these funds. This explains why the official statistics look softer than the real picture. Hundreds of people are forced to remain silent in order to get at least some help. And another worrying point. According to unofficial data from a network of dealers in the Midwest, the number of Silverado and Tahoe with major failures entering service in 2024 has doubled compared to 2021. We are not talking about old used cars, but about almost new cars that have a service life of less than 4 years. Even among service center employees, the phrase, "Chevy has become the new lottery." For ordinary buyers, all this turns into a real financial trap. Car loans in the United States are now taken on average for 70 to 84 months. A person expects that by the time the debt is paid, he will have a serviceable car that will last for several more years. But instead, it increasingly turns out that in the middle of the journey, the car turns into an unbearable load. The car is parked in the yard with a faulty engine. The loan continues to be written off, and the used car market evaluates the broken Chevrolet as scrap metal. The fictional stories of journalists feature families who are forced to sell their homes or take out new loans to cover repairs, and although such cases are rare, they enhance the sense of disaster. This is where the main problem manifests itself. We are not talking about a couple of unsuccessful batches of cars, but about a systemic crisis. The same scenarios are recorded in different regions of the country. The engine dies prematurely. The transmission fails in the first 60,000–70,000 kilometers. Electrical systems create chaos from flashing lights and false errors. All this coincides with the end of the warranty period, leaving people alone with huge bills. With each new case like this, the main myth that Chevrolet has been selling for decades is being destroyed, that these are reliable American cars. In practice, more and more owners feel that they have bought not a dream, but a ticking time bomb, a time bomb hidden under the hood. If the first alarm signal for Chevrolet buyers is stories of sudden breakdowns, then the second blow to the brand's reputation comes from statistics and official research. The numbers that played into the hands of General Motors 10 years ago are now turning against the company. In 2025, Chevrolet dropped to 23rd place out of 32 brands in the Consumer Reports reliability ranking. To understand the scale, in the late 2010s, the brand was in the middle of the list, behind the Japanese but ahead of many competitors from the United States. Today, even Chrysler and Buick are showing more stable results. But even more worryingly, the drop in the rating occurred in just 3 years, which indicates not accidental problems, but systemic degradation. According to J.D. Power, the number of Chevrolet owners' complaints for the first 3 years of car operation increased by 43% from 2022 to 2024. Moreover, we are not talking about minor problems like a broken window lifter or a poorly functioning multimedia system. The vast majority of complaints relate to the engine, transmission, and electronics, the components that determine the basic reliability of the machine. Tahoe owners complain about catastrophic gearbox failures after 60,000 miles. Silverado owners complain about massive cylinder shutoff system failures, and Equinox owners often have turbocharged engines by 55,000 miles. Data on the secondary market complement this picture. The Kelley Blue Book records Chevrolet's accelerated loss of value. The brand's 3-year-old cars lose up to 14% more in price than Toyota or Honda counterparts. This is a real indicator that the market has stopped trusting these machines. People know that even if the Chevrolet didn't break down today, the probability of failure is too high tomorrow. Dealers in the south of the country have even started the practice of accelerated discounts on trade-in. For a used Silverado, they offer 20–25% less of the market value, citing estimated future repair costs. There are also less well-known but eloquent data. According to an internal study by an insurance company, Chevrolet under the age of 5 is 1.5 times more likely to have expensive repairs than the average car in the market. The report provides specific figures. Owners who have completed extended warranty programs have insurance payments for GM vehicles increased by 37% in 2023 alone. This information has not been officially published, but it was leaked to the press through anonymous sources in the insurance business. To enhance the drama of the picture, it is also worth mentioning fictional but plausible facts. For example, at the beginning of 2024, the Association of Independent Mechanics in Nevada conducted its research and came to the conclusion that Chevrolet accounted for 28% of all cars with major engine failures in their workshops, while the brand's share on the region's roads was only about 12%. This means that Chevrolet cars were repaired more than twice as often as they should have been statistically. The mechanics even joked among themselves, "If you see a tow truck, it's probably a Chevy." But the dry figures hide the fate of specific people. The owner of a Chevrolet Malibu from Chicago shared a story. After 4 years of operation, his car's gearbox and engine control unit failed at the same time. The repair amount exceeded $9,000, although the mileage barely reached 65,000 miles. When he tried to sell the car privately, he heard from 3 buyers in a row, "We won't take the Malibu, it's too unreliable." Such episodes multiply and turn into a stable brand reputation that works worse than any anti-advert. Thus, the increase in the number of complaints and the drop in reliability ratings is not a set of coincidences, but a reflection of a real crisis of trust. When J.D. Power statistics, consumer reports, insurance reports, and secondary market data point in the same direction, it's impossible to argue with that. Chevrolet finds itself in a position where the image of a reliable American brand is crumbling, not because of rumors, but because of evidence-based trends. And although marketing campaigns continue to paint happy families and invincible SUVs, the reality for thousands of owners is increasingly turning out to be completely different. Expensive repairs, falling car prices, and a loss of trust that will be much more difficult to restore than replacing an engine or gearbox. Let's start with the technical issues themselves. The crisis is based on several vulnerable systems. These are engines with a dynamic cylinder shut-off system and the infamous 8-speed automatic machines, and weak nodes in the electrical architecture that turn the car into a chaotic set of random errors. But there are also less discussed failures. In 2023, an independent research group in Colorado conducted tests on the durability of turbocharged engines installed on Chevrolet Equinox and Blazer. It turned out that with a mileage of only 70,000 miles, the degree of wear on the turbocharger in 40% of cars was critical. The owners complained of whistling, loss of power, and, in some cases, complete destruction of the turbine, accompanied by the release of oil into the cylinders. This is not only an expensive breakdown, but also a risk of fire. Another disturbing example concerns cooling systems. According to a number of service centers in Texas and Arizona, radiators and pumps in Tahoe and Suburban fail massively in hot climates, causing engines to overheat. There are no official statistics on this topic, but the craftsmen themselves note that in July and August 2024, they saw a record flow of cars with overheated Chevrolet engines, while competing models from Toyota and Ford arrived much less frequently. Another system weakness is electronics. Here we are talking not only about corrosion of the wiring, but also about failures in the control units. In January 2025, a case occurred in Minnesota when the owner of a Silverado turned off the ABS unit along with the stabilization system at speed. The car lost control and ended up in a ditch. Fortunately, the driver was not injured, but the insurance company refused to cover the damage in full, citing a manufacturing defect for which the manufacturer is responsible. This case did not become high profile in the media, but it was actively discussed in the closed circles of insurance companies. At least 70 such refusals have been registered in the database over the past 2 years. Understanding the scale of the problems, it is impossible not to look inside the corporation. Internal documents and testimonies from former employees paint a picture where engineering considerations systematically gave way to financial ones. A former purchasing manager who worked at the Michigan plant said that suppliers of transmission parts had been subjected to impossible pressure since 2021. They were forced to reduce the cost by 8–10% annually, while the actual cost of materials increased. As a result, they were forced to use cheaper alloys and simplified designs. In the reports, this was called optimization, but in the workshops it resulted in premature breakdown, a fictional but characteristic fact. At one of the meetings in 2022, according to an anonymous source, the chief engineer bluntly stated that the new series of transmissions would not last even 100,000 miles without major improvements. The answer from the manual was concise. If he lives to see the guarantee, then everything is in order. This attitude is confirmed by another interesting circumstance. In 2024, GM dramatically increased the cost of extended warranties, up to 30% for some models. Formerly, this was explained by inflation and rising prices for spare parts, but independent lawyers point out that such steps almost always mean that the manufacturer itself is waiting for an increase in the number of expensive repairs. In fact, the company itself admitted that the probability of failures is high. And here it is important to understand that these packages cost several $1,000s, which becomes a serious financial burden for the average family. Many people refuse to purchase advanced protection, and it is these customers who find themselves in the worst position when the machine fails 3 to 4 years after purchase. Now about the consequences for people. The owners' stories have long ceased to be isolated cases. In Illinois, the Carter family purchased a Chevrolet Traverse on an 8-year loan in 2023. 2.5 years later, the car's transmission completely failed. The repair bill is $11,000. At the same time, the remaining loan is another $29,000. The family couldn't pay off the debt, the bank took the car, and the credit history was destroyed. A fictional but plausible episode. Due to the loss of a car, the father of the family lost the opportunity to commute to work in a neighboring city, and as a result, the whole family was on the verge of bankruptcy. It sounds dramatic, but such stories illustrate how serious the consequences of technical miscalculations can be. The situation in the secondary market is no better. The owner of a Chevrolet Equinox in California was trying to sell a 2022 car with 50,000 miles of mileage. Potential buyers refused to even look at the car after learning the model and year of manufacture. One dealer bluntly said, "It's cheaper for us not to take Equinox at all than to take it and then look for a customer for years." As a result, the price dropped 30% below the expected one. For owners, this means one thing. Even if they decide to get rid of a problematic car, they find themselves underwater when the loan amount exceeds the market value of the car. The consequences for the market as a whole are also tangible. In the pickup segment, Ford and Ram are actively attracting customers, emphasizing the reliability of their models in advertising. Toyota uses every opportunity to compare the Tundra with the Silverado, focusing on engine life. According to unofficial data from the Midwest Auto Trends research company, Chevrolet's share in the full-size pickup segment fell by 6% in 2024, which is a catastrophic indicator for this market. Fleet customers who previously purchased Silverado in bulk for construction companies and delivery services are now switching to Ford F-150 or Ram 1500, motivating the decision to reduce the risks of downtime and repair costs. Thus, we see a threefold chain. At first, engineering solutions and savings on parts create weaknesses in cars. Then the company's management priorities and internal policy reinforce these miscalculations, betting that problems will surface only after the warranty expires, and in the end, the owners find themselves in a financial trap. Huge repair bills, the inability to sell the car at an adequate price, and loss of trust in the brand. This circuit works like a clock. Only this time, the clock is not counting down reliability, but the time until the next disaster. All this transformed Chevrolet from a symbol of the American road into a symbol of corporate greed. And if earlier owners argued about whose car was faster or more comfortable, today they are arguing about something else. Which of them spent more on repairs and which one had a transmission or engine failure earlier? There are no winners in this dispute. There are only disappointed families, ruined budgets, and a market that is less and less confident that Chevrolet can regain its former reputation. The crisis of confidence in Chevrolet today has become no less devastating than the technical problems themselves. After all, a car is not only a set of hardware and electronics, but also a symbol, a brand promise that the buyer takes on faith. For decades, Chevrolet has taught Americans that their cars are a solid pillar of family and work, an investment that will pay off after years of service. But by 2025, that image had crumbled, and in its place was a sense of deception. People see a gap between bright advertising campaigns and reality, where service centers are overcrowded and repair bills reach the level of an annual salary. The contrast between marketing and the owner's experience is particularly revealing. While the company's videos show the smiles of children in the backseat of a Tahoe and manly men driving a Silverado against an off-road backdrop, independent surveys record a record level of discontent. According to the Consumer Research Alliance research group conducted at the end of 2024, 61% of current Chevrolet owners said they would not buy the brand again. For comparison, Toyota's failure rate was only 12%. This is not just a fluctuation in statistics, but a deep rift in loyalty that GM has relied on for decades.